This tutorial will cover new enrollments. Notice I am in my home workspace. The home workspace is not where new enrollments are created. Remember, a new enrollment is considered an entry assessment. You will want to be sure that you are on your client workspace to create a new enrollment. Click on the Home button and navigate over to the client workspace. Remember your favorites menu. For this exercise and when creating new enrollments, I highly encourage users to unpin your favorites menu. I am going to click on the pin and click outside of my favorites menu so that my favorites menu will collapse. This is very important because in doing assessments, it's very important that you do not click outside of the assessment workflow. The purpose of a homeless management information system is to create an unduplicated count of the clients that we serve. Before creating a new enrollment for a client, it is crucial to check to see if this client has an existing record within HMIS. To do so, please click on the Find Client magnifying glass in the Collapse Favorite menu. From this Find Client screen, you have several ways to search to see if a client has an existing record within HMIS. You will want to search multiple ways. The first way you should search to see if a client has an existing record within HMIS is to search for that client using the first three letters of the client's first name, first three letters of the client's last name, and click the Search button. The other option would be to search using the client's Social Security number. Please do not search for your client using more than the first three letters of the client's first and last name or the client's Social Security number. Doing so will not allow you to accurately find existing records within HMIS. Let's pretend my client's first name is March and the client's last name is Tess. This is where I will enter the first three letters of my client's first name and the first three letters of my client's last name. Nothing more, nothing less. If my client has a Social Security number, I would also search for my client using their Social Security number to see if they have an existing record. Remember, for this exercise, we want to create a new enrollment. Once I've entered the first three letters of my client's first name and last name, and I've searched for the client using their Social Security number, click on the Search button. Once you've clicked on the Search button, if you'll notice down below, I have to scroll down a little bit, but there are no records that are found. If my client had an existing record in HMIS, that record would appear here. We will cover how to create an enrollment for a client that has an existing record in HMIS in a different video. Now that I've confirmed my client does not have an existing record in HMIS, I am ready to move forward with creating a new enrollment. To do so, navigate over to your favorites menu. If you hover over the two arrows that are going in a circle, that is your intake button. Intake means that you want to create a new enrollment. Let's click on the intake button. When clicking on the intake button, this will start a workflow. A workflow is a series of screens within an assessment that have to be completed before the assessment is complete. Workflows are very sensitive. You always create assessments, whether that is an entry assessment, update assessment, annual assessment, or exit assessment within a workflow. I know that I'm in a workflow because I have a pause button and I also have a cancel button. Please remember to never navigate outside of your workflow. Workflows are to be completed from beginning to end. When you're in a workflow, please do not click on the back arrow within your internet browser. Do not click on the outside of your workflow. Do not click the pause or cancel button within your workflow. Here is a progress menu. We're starting off on the Add or Edit screen within the workflow, and below is a series of screens that we must complete before the workflow is done. When you've completed a workflow from beginning to end, the very last screen will confirm that you have done so with a message that says Finished. From the Add or Edit screen, there are three buttons to proceed with creating your new enrollment. Because we've already searched HMIS to see if our client has an existing record and they do not, please click on the Add New Client button. This will bring you to a screen titled Search Existing Clients. This screen will search all of HMIS to confirm that this client does or does not have an existing record. Again, please only enter the first three letters of your client's first name and the first three letters of your client's last name. Nothing more, nothing less. You can also search by the client's social security number without any characters for the first or last name. Let's click the next button. When you click the next button, there will be a message that flash in the bottom right corner that states no duplicates detected, which means that there are no existing records within HMIS. From this screen, you are going to now enter the client's full legal name. Notice that each star on the screen is required per the HMIS data standards. You will not be able to save or move forward from this screen without entering data in each required field. Middle name is not required. However, it is highly encouraged for you to record your client's middle name. This will make it easier to deduplicate clients and identify them in the system. Also, record a suffix for your client if applicable. Maybe your client is a junior, or a senior, or a second. The next field is name quality. This is what we call a data quality field. You will see these fields throughout the assessments that you complete in HMIS. The data quality field tells us what is the quality of the data that's being entered. Is it full information being reported? Partial information? Does the client not know or refuse to give that information? Or is data not being collected? For the name quality field, all but our street outreach programs are required to collect the client's full legal name. Partial street name or code names are permitted to be used by our street outreach program. Throughout the database, you will see client doesn't know, and this is the option that is appropriate for a client who does not know the piece of information being asked. Client refuse is applicable if the client refuses to give you that piece of data. Data not collected means that you as a user and as an agency are choosing to not ask the client the required information. Let's proceed to recording our client's full Social Security number. For training purposes, I've just made up a Social Security number. In the event that the client does not have their full Social Security number or they're not willing to share with you the full Social Security number, you can record zeros for the first 5 digits and then record the last 4 digits of the social. By doing so, the system will automatically recognize if this is a full or partial Social Security number. Agencies are not penalized for partial information, but you are penalized for no information or missing information. Let's scroll down to basic client demographics. This is where you would record your client's date of birth. You should record a 2-digit month, a 2-digit day, and a 4-digit year for the client's date of birth. If a client is not willing to give you their full date of birth, you can ask the client for their age by recording 01 for the month, 01 for the day, and the year in which the client was born. The system will calculate the client's age. From the data quality field, you can either choose this is the client's full date of birth or an approximate or partial date of birth. If a client is not willing to give you their date of birth, you can select client refuse. And if the client doesn't know, client doesn't know. And if your agency is not collecting this data, data not collected. Ethnicity, race, and gender. Each of these are self-identifying questions. We cannot self-identify on behalf of the client. We have to ask the client what ethnicity do they identify with? Do they identify as being Hispanic or Latino or not? What race does the client identify with? This is a multi-select question. If the client identifies with more than one race, the client will pull to the reports as multiracial. Be sure to not select a race and also choose client doesn't know, client refuse, or data not collected. The next field is gender. Please select if the client identifies with male, female, transgender male, transgender female, gender nonconforming. Veteran status. Please ask if the client is a veteran of our U.S. military or not. If the program the client is being enrolled in is funded by the VA, then additional veteran assessment questions will follow within the assessment. Notice the next section is contact information. This is where you can record the client's address, the encampment on which the client is living in, or the shelter that the client is living in. If the client does not have an address, you can leave this field blank, but this is where the client can be contacting. If the client is staying in an encampment, please be sure to record the name of the encampment in which the client is staying. An email address if the client has one. And although client phone number is not required, our system does ask for a client phone number. That way, the client can be contacted if services become available. The last section on this screen is family information. The relationship to head of household defaults to self. This should not be changed. When entering an enrollment, always start off with entering data for whomever is considered to be the head of household. Family members can be added later within the workflow. There's no need to change the relationship to head of household because I am entering data for my head of household. Let's click on Finish in the bottom right corner. The next screen within our workflow is the Family Member screen. I know this by looking at the progress bar to the left. If there are no family members to be added, all you have to do is save and close to proceed to the next screen. For this exercise, I will add one family member. Please pay attention closely. Each row represents a person that is within the family. Each person that is in the household should be part of the enrollment because they benefit from the services that are being received by the head of household. I'll add one family member. Remember, you always search to see if a client has an existing record in HMIS before creating a record. Each person in HMIS or within the family is considered to be a client within HMIS. Let's start by entering the first three letters of the family member's first name and the first three letters of the family member's last name. By clicking Tab or clicking on the Search button, this will bring you to a Find Client screen. Notice there are no records found. What this means is that the client does not have an existing record within HMIS. All I have to do is simply close the box. Now I'll come back to the first name field and record my client's full legal first name, a middle name if the client has a middle name, and the client's full legal last name. The Find Client box will come up again, and again, the client does not have any existing records in HMIS because I have a message that displays no records found. Let's close this box. If the client has a suffix, please record the suffix. The name data quality field defaults to full name reported. Let's record the client's date of birth. For this exercise, please make sure that the client is under the age of 18. My head of household is over the age of 18. I want to make my family member under the age of 18. That way I can demonstrate how the assessment questions differ based on the client's age. Use either your tab key or the scroll bar at the bottom to scroll to the right so that you complete all of the required fields. Record the client's gender. Record the client's social. If you continue to tab or scroll over, please record the relationship to head of household. How is this individual related to the person that is the head of household for this enrollment? Notice there's not a question for veteran status because my family member is under the age of 18. Also notice that race and ethnicity defaults to what we recorded for our head of household. If this is not accurate, be sure to change this data. Pregnancy status and pregnancy due date are not required for all programs. Before clicking the Save and Close button, please scroll over to the left. It is very important that you ensure there is a check mark to the left of each family member being added. If there were more family members to add, I would simply follow the same steps by recording the first three letters of our next family member's first name and last name on the next row, and so on. You will want to add each family member to this screen before clicking the Save and Close button in the bottom right corner. There should be a check mark to the left of each person before proceeding. Now that I've confirmed there's a check mark to the left of each family member's name, let's click Save and Close. From this Hub Program Enrollment screen, this is where you would select the project for which the client should be enrolled in. Simply click on the Project drop-down box from the Project field. Within this training site, these are training projects. In the production site, you will see all programs related to your agency. Be sure to select the correct program. If you accidentally enroll the client in the incorrect program, please go ahead and enroll the client in the correct program and place a service request so that we can delete the incorrect enrollment. For this exercise, let's choose a permanent supportive housing program. Once the program has been selected, please do not click Save. It's very important that you scroll down to the Household section. This is where each family member will be displayed. Let's recap what we've gone over so far. The first screen, we created a record for our head of household. On the second screen, for family members, we created a record for each individual within the family. On this screen, this is where we select the program that we want to enroll each family member in. Now that we've selected the permanent supportive housing program and scroll down to the household section, this is where you have to be sure to place a check mark here in the Select All button. Ensure that there is a check mark to the left of each family member. This will add each person to the enrollment that we are creating at this time for the program that we've selected. In this example, this is a permanent supportive housing program. Also notice that the project start date, it defaults to today's date. If this is not the date that the client enrolled in the program, this is where you will want to backdate the project start date to the correct date. Exit date should not be recorded within this entry assessment. Also, notice that the case manager's name defaults to my name. If the case manager is not yourself, all you have to do is select the magnifying glass and choose the appropriate case manager. This is a great functionality for managing your caseload. Whomever is the assigned case manager will be able to see this enrollment and these clients on their caseload from the home workspace that we discussed in the previous video. Also, notice the relationship to head of household. And because I've selected a permanent supportive housing program, the housing move-in date is an option as well. Let's click Save in the bottom right corner. We now come to our Universal Data Assessment. Please bring your attention to the progress bar. We've completed a basic client information, our family member screen, and program enrollment. This Universal Data Assessment is for our head of household. That client's name is March Tess. That's very important that you pay attention to who the data is being asked about. The assessment date defaults to the date that the client enrolled in the program. There's no need to change that. The very first field on this screen is disabling condition. If your client has a disabling condition, from the drop-down box, select yes or no if the client does not have a disabling condition. For this exercise, let's say yes. Scroll down to client location, and the client location should default for you. There's nothing here for you to select. For living situation, this question is asking about your client's living situation prior to being enrolled into your program. One way of asking this question is, where did the client sleep the night before enrolling into your program? From the drop-down box, you will see a grouping of homeless situations, institutional situations, as well as transitional and permanent housing situations. By scrolling down, there are a few options under Other. For this exercise, let's pretend that our client came from a homeless situation. In doing so, I'm being prompted to answer additional questions. Length of stay in prior living situation. In other words, Mr. Client, I understand that you were in a homeless situation the night before coming into my program. How long were you in that homeless situation? Choose the answer from the drop-down box. The next question asks about approximate date homelessness started. This is the date for the client's most recent episode of homelessness. We know that clients move in and out our homeless response system. This question is referring to the client's first date of their most recent episode of homelessness. The next question is regardless of where the client stayed last night, the number of times the client has been in a homeless situation, which is on the streets, in emergency shelter, or safe haven in the past 3 years, including today. Total number of months on the street in an emergency shelter or safe haven in the past 3 years. This is where you would add up the total number of months for each episode of the client's episodes of homelessness. This section is titled Living Situation. Living situation, coupled with the client's disabling condition, is very important as it will help to determine if the client is considered to be chronically homeless at the time of entering the program or if they age into chronicity. If you have any questions on how to answer these questions properly, please reach out to your supervisor or place a service request to the HMIS admins. The next section for the Universal Data Assessment is health insurance. The question being asked is the client covered by health insurance? For this exercise, we'll say no, that the client is not covered by health insurance, and we will review this at a later time. By scrolling down, I see that there are no additional assessment questions to be answered. Now we will want to click Save to proceed to the next screen. Keep in mind that the questions that a user will receive depends on the program for which the client is being enrolled and what the funding source is. Your questions may be different from what you see here within this tutorial. Let's discuss barriers. Barriers is not a HMIS term. However, this screen does refer to the disabilities within the HMIS data standards. Simply scroll down and you will see a list of barriers or disabling conditions as within the HMIS data standards. On the previous screen, we did record that our client does have a disabling condition. It is expected from this screen that you select which disabling condition the client has. Keep in mind, it must be a HUD-defined disabling condition. For this exercise, I am going to record yes that my client has each of these disabling conditions just so that I can demonstrate for you what the system will do when you record yes to a particular disabling condition. Alcohol abuse, chronic health condition, drug abuse, mental health, and physical disability will require the question condition indefinite. The data standards ask, is this condition expected to be of long continuing and indefinite duration, and does it substantially impair the client's ability to live independently? In other words, does the client depend on the treatment and services that your agency provides so that they can live independently? If that is so, you would say yes to the disabling condition and also record yes that the condition is indefinite, which means that the client has a HUD-defined disabling condition. You must say yes or no to each barrier before being able to move forward. These are the only questions on this screen. Let's click Save and Close. The next screen for most users will be domestic violence. For this exercise, we'll say no, our client has not experienced any domestic violence, and we will discuss this particular question at a later time. Let's click Save. The next section most users will come to is income and sources and non-cash benefits. Let's scroll down. Remember, each assessment Rather, it is a entry assessment, update assessment, annual assessment, or exit assessment is a point in time assessment, meaning this is a snapshot of the client's situation at entry at the time of being enrolled into the program. For this exercise, we'll say no, our client does not have any income at the time of enrolling into the program, and the client does not have any non-cash benefits. We will discuss this question at a later time. Please notice that expenses is not a required data element. Therefore, there is no need to answer this question. Let's click Save and Close. The next screen that you will come to is, again, the Universal Data Assessment. We've seen this screen before. So who are these set of questions being asked about? We've already completed the assessment questions for our head of household, March test. Now these questions are being asked about the family member. Let's scroll down, and what you will notice is the age of my client at the time of entry is 2 years old. The only questions that are required for this client on the Universal Data Assessment is health insurance. Let's choose No for this question and click Save. Excuse me, the other question that's required is disabling condition, which we've discussed about our head of household. Let's say no, the client does not have a disabling condition, and click Save. This will bring you to the barrier screen. If you'll notice under disabling condition at the top, this question pulled in from the previous screen. We've said no, our client does not have a disabling condition. Remember, before this screen can be saved, we have to say yes or no to each barrier. I'm going to simply click no for the first question, and if I place a check mark in the select all field, all the other barriers will default to no. That's a little trick to help you complete your data entry quickly. Click Save and Close in the bottom right corner, and you will now come to a screen that says you're done. This means that you have completed all sections of this workflow for the entry assessment for your head of household as well as the family member. If you'll bring your attention to the progress bar, there's a check mark to the left of each section. This is what the screen looks like when you have completed your workflow from beginning to end. As a reminder, always complete your workflow from beginning to end. You should not save, you should not cancel, you shouldn't navigate away or outside of your workflow. Doing so will cause missing information within your reports. Now that our workflow is done, let's click Finish. After you've clicked Finish, you will come to your Head of Households dashboard. This is where we will conclude this video.